As AI progresses, Ethereum may be heading to $12,000, $22,000, or even $60,000 over the next few years. Right now, two of the most respected voices in finance are quietly laying out a scenario that could completely reshape the crypto market. Cathie Wood is pointing to a macro shift where inflation cools, interest rates begin to fall, and innovation starts accelerating again. And that combination has historically been the exact environment where risk assets like crypto make their biggest move. At the same time, Tom Lee is making one of his boldest Ethereum calls yet. He lays out a framework where Ethereum doesn't just recover. It climbs back to 12,000, pushes toward 22,000, and in a more aggressive scenario reaches as high as $60,000 per coin. In this video, we are going to break down exactly what Cathie Wood is seeing in the macro setup, why Tom Lee believes Ethereum could outperform its previous cycle, and how this convergence of AI, tokenization, and falling rates could trigger the next major move in crypto. And before we jump into it, just a quick reminder, only a small percentage of you watching are actually subscribed. If you're getting value from the videos, hit that subscribe button. It's free, it supports the channel, and you can always change your mind later. Now, let's begin.
Bitcoin to gold. Bitcoin is starting to outperform gold again. Gold peaked January 28th, the day that Warsh was announced as the next Fed chairman, if Congress approves him. And he is slightly hawkish. So Bitcoin has been moving up relative to gold. That's interesting. And then just the last two or three charts here. This one is still a puzzle. Why is that green line, metals to gold, still going down? Is it China? Is something really wrong in China? I don't know if it's just China, but it is puzzling, especially now that the gold price has gone down from nearly, I think it was almost, was it $5,600 down to $4,400. We haven't seen a clear turn in this variable, which is quite interesting.
Something subtle is starting to shift in the market, and it is happening right under most people's noses. Cathie Wood highlights that Bitcoin is beginning to outperform gold again, and that change in relative strength has historically marked the early stages of much larger moves. Over the past year, gold dominated as investors looked for safety during inflation fears and global uncertainty. It pushed toward extreme highs before pulling back, and now that momentum is fading just as Bitcoin begins to regain strength, this rotation is not random. Gold tends to lead when investors are defensive and uncertain about growth. Bitcoin tends to lead when markets start looking forward again, when liquidity improves, and when investors are willing to take on more risk for higher returns. When Bitcoin starts outperforming gold after a period where gold was leading, it often signals that capital is beginning to rotate out of protection and back into opportunity. That kind of shift usually does not happen at the end of a cycle. It tends to show up when a new phase is quietly getting underway. At the same time, Cathie Wood points out something that does not fully line up with that narrative. Industrial metals compared to gold are still weak, which normally reflects concerns about global demand, especially from large economies like China. That creates a mixed signal because on one side you have Bitcoin gaining strength, while on the other side parts of the global economy still look soft. What matters more is how markets behave during uncertainty. They do not wait for every signal to turn positive. They begin moving when conditions start to improve at the margins. The fact that Bitcoin is already showing relative strength suggests that some investors are positioning ahead of a broader shift rather than reacting after it becomes obvious. And once that shift becomes clearer, attention quickly moves beyond Bitcoin alone and toward the rest of the crypto market, where the upside tends to accelerate much faster.
My guess is that the 10-year Treasury yield is probably going to fall because we've had a lot of major forces pushing it up, not the least of which has been the recent flare-up in commodity prices. If we're right and the supply side of the economy is coming to the rescue, we're probably going to be surprised at interest rates coming down as opposed to going up. And a final chart here. final two charts. Here, credit default swaps on banks. Private credit, is this infecting, is it going to be a systemic issue? This chart would suggest no, it's not backing up into the banking system. And this is the high yield chart, so junk bonds relative to treasuries. They're not seeing anything on the horizon bothersome. In fact, they're near all-time lows. So these charts, these last two charts, would say nothing to worry about. We know there's a lot to worry about. The market has gone through a bout of volatility here. But if we're right that there's a boom, that inflation is going to resolve to the downside after this conflict passes, and that productivity, profitability is going to increase, we think that's very positive for the equity markets. And I will say one last thing. Profit measures came out for the fourth quarter, and they look very good. Now, again, active management is going to be important here. Is margin compression going to be a problem for consumer goods and related companies? In the short term, we think it is. Longer term, we think it will be another reason for companies to harness AI and other productivity tools to stem decline in margins and maybe even increase margins in the future.
The next piece of the puzzle comes from the bond market, and this is where Cathie Wood starts to lean more constructively. Her view is that the 10-year Treasury yield is more likely to fall than continue rising, and that shift alone could change everything for risk assets. Over the past year, higher yields have acted like gravity on markets. They made borrowing more expensive, pressured valuations, and forced investors to stay defensive. Now that pressure may be starting to ease. Commodity prices had been one of the main drivers pushing yields higher, but if supply conditions improve, as Cathie Wood suggests, inflation could begin to cool faster than expected. That opens the door for interest rates to come down rather than move higher, which is not what most of the market has been positioned for. When expectations flip like that, the reaction is usually sharp. There are already early signs that support this idea. Credit markets are not showing stress. Credit default swaps on banks are stable, which suggests the financial system is not under immediate pressure. High yield bonds, often called junk bonds, are also trading near historically tight levels compared to treasuries. That tells you investors are not pricing in a major wave of defaults or a deep recession. At the same time, recent data has started to stabilize in areas that were weakening before. Some forward-looking indicators have begun to recover and liquidity conditions are gradually improving. These are not the kind of signals you typically see before a major downturn. They are more consistent with a market that has already absorbed a lot of bad news and is preparing for better conditions ahead. If interest rates do begin to fall while the system remains stable, that combination has historically been one of the strongest setups for growth assets. And once liquidity starts flowing back into the system, crypto tends to react faster and more aggressively than almost any other market. That is where the conversation begins to shift from macro conditions into what could actually drive the next wave of innovation inside crypto itself. And if you want to stay ahead of these signals and know exactly when the market's heating up or when it's giving you those rare buying windows, I break it down every day in the Crypto Nutshell, my free 5-minute daily crypto newsletter. It's built to give you quick, actionable insights so you can make smarter decisions without spending hours buried in charts or headlines. You'll get clear signals on when to buy, when to take profits, and the latest news that could move markets, all delivered straight to your inbox. Just click the first link in the description, enter your email, and you're in.
Now, I've put together a list of all the things that work better in AI system using blockchain. But let me just cover a few of these really quickly. One is, of course, identity, decentralized identity. The second is the unit of payment and the payment system. I don't think AI systems care that they're using dollars to collect payments, but they almost certainly don't want to be using PayPal or Visa or MasterCard to do micropayments because they want to use smaller units of accounts, and that's where crypto comes into play. And what all this means, in our view, is that blockchains should gain relevance against crypto's store of value, which is Bitcoin. And so in our minds, the way to think about the future of Ethereum is its price ratio to Bitcoin. Now, the 8-year average is 0.0479. The high was 0.087. And what does that mean for the price of Ethereum? Well, we think fair value for Bitcoin is 250,000. And so if Ethereum goes back to the 8-year average, that's 12,000. If Ethereum goes back to its 2021 high of the price ratio, that's 22,000 Ethereum. Of course, I think it's better positioned today than it was in 2021. And so that gets us to what we think is the payment rails number, that Ethereum is going to be roughly a quarter of the value of Bitcoin, and that gets you to 62,000. And that's kind of following the previous historical price cycles, that if you look at the last crypto lows and make a composite of where Ethereum could be in roughly 3 years, that would be a 30x, and that would take us to around 60,000.
Now, the focus shifts from macro conditions into something much bigger, and this is where Tom Lee starts connecting the dots between artificial intelligence and blockchain. His argument is not just that crypto will benefit from better liquidity, it is that blockchain becomes necessary infrastructure for how future systems operate, especially when it comes to payments and identity. Think about how artificial intelligence systems actually function at scale. They do not just process information, they transact, they need to make small, constant payments between machines, whether that is paying for data, accessing services, or interacting with other systems. Traditional rails are not built for that. Platforms like Visa or PayPal are designed for larger, human-driven transactions, not continuous micro-transactions between autonomous agents. That is where blockchain starts to make sense. It allows for smaller units of value to move efficiently without the friction of legacy intermediaries. Tom Lee points to decentralized identity as another key layer where systems can verify and interact without relying on centralized gatekeepers. When you combine payments and identity, you are essentially rebuilding the foundation of how digital systems operate. This is why Ethereum becomes central in his framework. It is not just competing as a store of value like Bitcoin. It is positioning itself as the base layer for applications that actually run the system. That changes how you value it entirely. Tom Lee then ties this to a very specific price framework. If Bitcoin reaches around 250,000 and Ethereum returns to its historical ratio relative to Bitcoin, that alone could push Ethereum toward 12,000. A stronger recovery toward previous cycle highs could bring it closer to 22,000. And in a more aggressive scenario where Ethereum captures a larger share of financial infrastructure, the numbers expand even further toward 60,000. The important part is not just the target, it is the reasoning behind it. If Ethereum becomes embedded in how artificial intelligence systems transact, its role in the global economy grows in a way that did not exist in previous cycles. And once you start looking at crypto through that lens, the entire financial system begins to look like it is on the edge of a much larger transformation.
I've talked a lot about tokenization in the past, so I'm going to fly through this. You can look at our other presentations about this, but I think we're going through an important moment in the financial system, not too different than 1971, which is that tokenization is a time when we're making almost every asset synthetic. And it follows a roadmap that happened when the US went off the gold standard in 71. It led to unleashing a huge innovation of products from money market funds to currency futures to CDOs to index futures, all because the US was trying to preserve the sovereignty of the dollar when we went off the gold standard. Well, I think that's happening today because now we're digitizing everything. And look, even Jamie Dimon, the biggest skeptic on blockchain, even recently stated that crypto is better than the current financial system. So what does that mean? Well, I think everyone who's building in crypto is going to develop these future products, and that's stablecoins, tokenized equities, tokenized monetary reputation, but it's also really part of the future agentic system. And part of this is the Clarity Act, which we hope passes, has a 59% chance of passing. But if it doesn't, I think crypto is actually going to do well without the Clarity Act, because that just means that companies are going to be building, engineers are going to be developing products that are relevant without the banking system.
What Tom Lee is really laying out here is a full revaluation framework for Ethereum based on how the entire financial system is evolving, not just short-term price action. Tom Lee starts from a simple anchor point. If Bitcoin reaches around $250,000 in a long-term cycle scenario, then Ethereum does not need extreme assumptions to justify major upside. It only needs to return to historical relationship levels with Bitcoin. Over the past several years, Ethereum has traded within a wide but recognizable range relative to Bitcoin. In his framework, the 8-year average Ethereum to Bitcoin ratio sits around 0.00479. At that level, Ethereum would be valued near $12,000 if Bitcoin reaches that 250,000 anchor. That is not a speculative stretch in his view, it is a reversion to long-term structure. Then he expands the model further. If Ethereum simply returns to its previous cycle peak ratio from 2021, the implied valuation moves closer to $22,000, and in a more aggressive scenario where Ethereum gains additional dominance as the settlement layer for tokenized assets and decentralized applications, the ratio could expand further toward a quarter of Bitcoin's value, which pushes Ethereum towards $60,000. The key driver behind this is not just retail speculation, it is the idea that blockchain networks become core infrastructure for financial settlement. Tokenization of real-world assets, stablecoin growth, and on-chain financial rails all increase Ethereum's relevance in a way that did not exist in earlier cycles. What makes this important is that these projections are not based on hype cycles alone. They are based on structural adoption curves and how value flows through new digital systems. And if that structure continues to build, Ethereum stops behaving like a speculative asset and starts behaving like foundational financial infrastructure. When you put both perspectives together, what Cathie Wood and Tom Lee are really describing is not two separate stories, but one converging setup that could define the next major phase of crypto. On one side, you have a macro environment that is quietly shifting. Inflation pressures are easing at the margin, interest rate expectations are starting to peak, and credit markets are not showing signs of systemic stress. That combination matters because every major crypto expansion in history has started when liquidity conditions begin to improve before it becomes obvious in the real economy. On the other side, you have a structural transformation happening inside technology itself. Artificial intelligence systems are scaling faster than traditional payment infrastructure can realistically support. They need constant settlement, microtransactions, and autonomous coordination. That forces a rethink of how value moves across digital systems. This is where Ethereum enters the center of the discussion. It is no longer just competing as a speculative asset or even just a store of value alternative. It is increasingly being positioned as the settlement layer for a new digital economy where assets are tokenized, payments are automated, and identity becomes programmable. If these trends continue, the market structure changes completely. Bitcoin continues to act as digital gold, absorbing macro liquidity flows. Ethereum becomes the infrastructure layer that powers financial and technological applications, and the broader crypto ecosystem begins to behave less like a speculative market and more like an emerging parallel financial system. That is why the projections discussed in earlier sections feel so wide. They are not just price targets, they are different scenarios for how fast this transformation actually takes hold. And when markets start pricing in structural change instead of short-term cycles, moves tend to accelerate far beyond what most investors expect. Anyway guys, that's all we have for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.